Hundreds of millions spent in a single summer. But are football's biggest clubs just throwing darts in the dark, or is there a secret science to the mega transfer? I mean, 100 million for one player? It sounds like absolute madness. But what if I told you the world's biggest football clubs aren't just splashing cash, they're actually running incredibly complex mathematical algorithms? Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're cracking open the vault on the beautiful game's most explosive, expensive, and chaotic element, the transfer market. We're going to look at the jaw-dropping numbers, the human stories behind them, and then we're diving deep into a fascinating piece of academic research that attempts to bring mathematical order to a multi-billion-dollar frenzy.
Just listen to this financial drumbeat from the recent window. Boom, £50 million. Manchester United securing 22-year-old Brazilian midfielder André Santos to anchor their new engine room.
Boom, £100 million. Tottenham Hotspur completely shattering their wage structure for Newcastle's Sandro Tonali. Boom, £116 million. Manchester City making Elliot Anderson one of the most expensive British players in history. And it literally doesn't stop. PSG is currently demanding a mind-bending €170 million from Liverpool for Bradley Barcola. These numbers are just astronomical.
But let's just pause for a second, right? Because on the other side of these unearthly figures are actual human beings, real young men experiencing the biggest moments of their entire lives. When Elliot Anderson finalized his massive move, he wasn't talking about his amortization value. He was talking about joining his idols, calling City the Kings of Manchester, and talking about how he desperately wanted to emulate Kevin De Bruyne.
And you know, it's the exact same story with André Santos. When he arrived at Old Trafford, he spoke purely from the heart. He called it an incredible feeling to join a club his idols represented, saying it was his chance to push to achieve my dreams. To the players and to us as fans, this is the romance of football. It's passion, it's destiny, it's glory.
Okay, so let's dive into this because here is the million, or actually, should I say billion-dollar question. How do the clubs actually calculate these massive fees? Behind the romance and the badge kissing, how are these emotional flesh-and-blood moments calculated as cold, hard assets in a boardroom?
Section 1, the science of squad optimization, bringing order to billion-dollar chaos.
So to figure this out, we're turning to some brilliant academic research by Basu, Deb, and Roy, who treat player valuation as a highly complex, multi-criteria optimization problem. Now, what's really fascinating here is just how many layers there actually are to a player's price tag. Their linear mixed effects model shows that a player's worth is built on highly specific, interconnected data points. Yes, they look at age and physical attributes, but age is actually calculated on a curve to account for diminishing returns as a player gets older. They look at recent form, meaning your goals, your passing accuracy, your interceptions, but crucially, they also factor in context. Stuff like the overall depth of the buying team, the supply and demand for that specific position on the pitch, and even league-specific inflation. Like a player moving to the Premier League instantly costs more simply because the selling club knows the Premier League is flush with cash.
And looking at the heat map here, you can see how it brilliantly illustrates the output of all that math. Notice how it groups players by their expected costs versus optimal targets across various clubs simultaneously. The model is ranking players like Adama Traoré or Kevin De Bruyne based on cost versus the exact rating improvement they bring to a specific squad. It's not just, hey, is this player good? It's more like, is this player the exact statistical piece we need for the exact price we can afford? It's like a giant puzzle, and the algorithm is looking at the entire global board of players to find that one perfect piece.
Section 2. Predicting the perfect price. When algorithms meet the real world.
So it's one thing to calculate a player's perfect mathematical value in a vacuum, right? But do real-world prices actually match the math? Well, sometimes yes, but sometimes absolutely not. When the researchers benchmarked their model against a historical Premier League season, they found a glaring anomaly, which you can see right here. Players like Harry Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka went to Manchester United for transfer fees that massively exceeded the upper range of what the mathematical model predicted. So why does that happen? Well, the researchers point to something called the English tax. When English clubs buy English players, the prices become wildly inflated beyond their statistical output. It just goes to show that even the absolute best data models can be blown out of the water by subjective, market-specific biases, or honestly, a club prioritizing defensive depth at absolutely any cost.
Section 3. Winning the bidding war. The chaos of competition.
What happens when multiple mega clubs target the exact same player? You've got the player's base value, you've got the club's budget, but what happens when human competition enters the fray? The researchers ran an independent private value auction model to find out.
Take a look at the distinct auction distributions here for Miguel Almiron and Adama Traore. For Almiron, you had Everton, Southampton, and Watford bidding. The expected price was 8.2 million euros, and the final average simulated price was around 9.1 million. So, a slight bump. But look at Traore. You had Manchester City, Tottenham, Newcastle, and Watford all in the mix. Because Manchester City was a vastly financially dominant bidder, the bidding strategies of all the other clubs warped entirely.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. The presence of a single financially dominant club, like a Manchester City or PSG, distorts market prices far beyond a player's statistical value. In the Traore simulation, the seller's expected reserve price was 3.7 million euros. But because of the bidding war dynamics driven by a dominant club, the mean selling price rocketed all the way up to 8.6 million. That is more than double the expected price generated purely by the mechanics of a bidding war. The math literally proves that competition itself is a massive inflationary force.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We're seeing some incredible advancements in how clubs use data to optimize their squads. Algorithms can tell a team exactly who to buy and how much they're fundamentally worth. But once that human element kicks in, the childhood dreams, the panic of deadline day, the ego of the bidding war, and the bottomless pockets of mega clubs, the math often just gets left in the dust. So, in a market ruled by billions, is the data finally catching up to the drama? Or will the beautiful game and its transfer market always be beautifully unpredictable? Definitely something to think about the next time a £100 million transfer breaks your feed. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.